Alright, continuing our discussion of heavy metals in a little bit more depth. So today's episode will be on arsenic. This is not as known a metal as mercury and aluminum, but it's nonetheless toxic, so we need to talk about it. Let me give you a little quote from a scientific paper that I cite in my book, Autism, Wellbeing Plan. So basically this is a study that it was an in-depth analysis of arsenic, cadmium, and manganese exposure in neurodevelopmental and behavioral disorders in children. And here's what the researchers state in the paper. In 13 of the 15 articles studied, we found that arsenic exposure had a significant negative effect on neurodevelopment in children aged between 5 and 15 years. In most studies, this deleterious effect affected full-scale IQ. More specifically, a deficit was found in verbal and performance domains, with memory being affected to a lesser extent. So to put it more simply, arsenic was found to have a negative effect on children's IQ in most of those 15 studies. They reviewed 15 studies, 13 of them found that arsenic exposure had a negative effect on neurodevelopment. Neuro means brain, just in case anyone is unclear. So arsenic exposure, it has many harmful effects on the body. It's a systemic whole body poison. So it poisons the gut, the liver, kidneys, the skin, the blood, the nervous and the immune systems. In fact, arsenic used to be used as a means to assassinate people back in the day. Some even think that Napoleon Bonaparte was assassinated with arsenic, and there's been quite a number of kind of high, quote unquote, high profile assassinations that are purported to have been done with arsenic. Now, nowadays we can test hair for arsenic, so it's not as an attractive option, for assassins, right? So arsenic can damage the brain. Obviously, this is why it's linked to neurodevelopmental problems. It can also damage tissues in the central nervous system, which is very much linked with the brain, of course. They make one system. And it's a neurotoxin. It poisons brain cells. It's toxic to brain cells, and it can contribute to learning disability, memory impairment, all sorts of disorders of the brain, and what are known as psychomotor problems. So problems with movement, coordination, fine and gross motor skills, right? And it's basically, like I said, it's a systemic poison, and some researchers think that arsenic poisons, it interferes with enzymes used to produce energy in our cells. And when you think about it, if the cell cannot produce energy, it cannot do whatever function it has. So that could be detoxing something, supplying nutrients to organs, repairing DNA, these kind of things. So this is why it's a systemic poison. It just basically, cells stop being able to do their job. And here's the problem with arsenic, is that the drinking water in many countries is contaminated. This makes it the biggest source of arsenic exposure for millions and millions of children around the world. So for example, high-risk countries include Argentina, Chile, Mexico, China, Hungary, India, Bangladesh, and Vietnam. So those are kind of higher risk countries. And other than the water, other sources of exposure to arsenic include, we get it from the air, non-organic chicken and egg products, non-organic rice and rice products. So rice is a fairly substantial source of arsenic exposure. It can also be found in fish, certain fruits and vegetables, pesticides and fungicides. This is why I keep stressing the importance of organic food. And it's also in certain building materials, wood preservatives, for example, and you can also find that in certain cosmetics. So another very common toxin, a few things you can do. Like I said, immediately switch to an all-organic diet for your child. This is probably the number one thing that I keep recommending, and it's also one of probably the easiest, it's one of the easiest things because you don't have to, you don't really need much knowledge. You just have to make some habit changes to start eating organic. It's not difficult. It may be financial. In some cases, financially, it might be a bit more difficult. But the nice thing about organic products is many of them prices are starting to drop because of the demand increasing. And the more we support organic farming, the more those prices will drop. And the other thing you can do is make sure that your child only drinks filtered water. So that's a little bit of an overview of arsenic and a couple of things you can do right now to reduce your child's exposure. In the next episode, I will talk about lead, and I hope to see you there.